let's talk about colored pencils. So colored pencils come in a smaller case because they are smaller. If you are using colored pencils, you always want to make sure you have your sharpener ready. Here's what a level 1 colored pencil would look like. So I always want to make sure my pencil is nice and sharp. So as you can see here, I'm not coloring in the lines. And I have a lot of white space here. You can see here I colored it really dark, and here I colored it light and dark, so the color is not even. Normally, if I'm coloring a space this big, colored pencils wouldn't typically be the thing that I would use to color that. That's too big of a space for colored pencils. Colored pencils are for smaller details. Colored pencils aren't really meant to be colored very hard because they'll run out super fast. So a number 2 is like when you're coloring a little too hard with the colored pencils and maybe you're doing a better job at staying in the lines. It's a little bit better, but there's still white space. You can see that my colored pencil is almost totally gone now. So level 3 is when I'm not coloring super hard and I'm using little circles and I'm going back and forth over my colors to make sure it's really nice and even. And I'm staying inside the lines. And when I'm coloring with colored pencils, I like to, instead of just doing lines like this, I like to do little tiny circles so that you can't really tell what direction my colored pencil is going in. It helps it blend it. So if you switch up the directions and do really light layers, one thing about colored pencils is that you really want to be careful with the purple and the blue because they look very similar. So what I like to do with colored pencils is flip it over and double check to see what color I'm using. So this is actually purple, and this is blue, and this is black, and they all look very similar, so you have to be careful. And some of them don't have the color written on them, like these ones don't have the word blue or purple written on them, so you have to test them out on the back or a separate sheet of paper. So now a 3 obviously means that we outline our work. And one thing I've noticed is that when people outline, some of them aren't being super careful that the line is going as close on the pencil line as possible. So if I see that you're rushing through your outlining, that might not get you a 3, that might get you a 2. So for example, this would be a 2 outline because it's not directly on the edge of the 2. This would be a 3 outline. This is what I love about colored pencil is that we can blend really easily with colored pencil. So I can press down hard at the top, and then as I go, I'm using these little circles to blend that color down. And so I could actually, what I can do to blend colored pencil is just keep going over it really lightly with light layers until you can't see where the dark spot part ends and the light part begins. So I'm just going over this super lightly. I'm not pressing down hard. I'm just blending where that dark pink starts so that you can't see. It's almost like an optical illusion. You don't know where the light pink starts and where the dark pink ends. You want to go in little tiny circles so that you can't see the pencil marks. This is a value scale. You can do a value scale with any type of medium in art, but today we're gonna do our first one with colored pencils. So a value scale shows colors going from the lightest to the darkest. So you get to choose whichever color you want. You're gonna do a value scale, and then you're going to do a gradient, which is where there is no stopping between each value of the color. It's just a continuous gradient. So I'm gonna choose orange to get started. So I like to color, when I'm shading, I like to hold my pencil more towards the back. And I'm not as concerned about you staying in the lines on this one. It's more about pressure and how hard I'm pressing. So I'm very, very lightly pressing down with the colored pencil. Now, that was my lightest pressure. So medium pressure is I'm gonna do that same amount of pressure. So it should be exactly the same. And then I'm just gonna keep going over it with that pressure and adding layers until it starts to get gradually darker. I don't want it too much darker. I want gradually changing from one value to the other. So that was medium pressure. Now I'm gonna do my hard pressure. Again, you can do this by just pressing lightly and then adding layers, or I can just go ahead and start pressing hard right away. And so you can see that my orange gets darker and darker. Now I'm getting into my medium, dark, and darkest. So these other two boxes are gonna be my hardest pressure plus adding a dark color. So I could just go ahead and use my hardest pressure. And now I'm gonna go in and add a darker color. So a darker color here could be red, because red is darker than orange. It could be brown or it could be black. I'm gonna choose brown. And so now I don't wanna go ahead and start using my darkest pressure right away. I wanna use my lightest pressure with brown because I don't want this square to be too much darker than my medium one. So I'm just lightly adding that darker color. And you can see it's just a little bit darker. And here on this next one is where I add even more pressure and I make it even more dark. So now I'm gonna do a gradient, which is exactly what I did here, except there's no stopping the colors. The colors should just transition smoothly from one to the other. So I'm gonna start with my lightest here, my lightest color. If I want, I can just fill up the whole square with that light pressure. Make it nice and even. And then as I start to get towards this box, I can start to add a little bit more pressure, but I'm just going back and forth. I should not see where one color ends or one value ends and the other begins. So I'm just going back and forth, adding more and more layers as I get deeper and deeper into my gradient. Remember, we don't want to be able to see where one dark color ends and the other begins. So I really want to go over with just light layers over and over and over again to help me blend. So now I'm getting towards my heaviest pressure, and I can start adding the heavy pressure all the way till the end of my box or my gradient box. And I still really want to make sure that all of that is blended. So it could be done here, but we're gonna add another layer. And if it's not blended well enough, I want you to still keep going over it with the lightest pressure until it's blended. Now I can add a darker color here. I could add blue, I could add brown, I could add black. I usually like to do the next color in the rainbow if I'm gonna do a color. Otherwise I use brown or black. So now I'm gonna have my darkest pressure towards the edge And then I'm just gonna slowly, as I go in, make my pressure lighter and lighter. I'm pressing lighter and lighter as I blend. And towards the middle, I really shouldn't be pressing at all. I should be just barely adding that brown. And if the brown's not blended, you need to just keep adding your lightest pressure. So here, if I don't have it blended enough, I'm just gonna keep going over it, over and over and over and over again until it is blended. And that is my gradient. One more reminder for you, when you are shading, again, like I mentioned, you really want to hold your pencil towards the back and use the edge of the pencil, and you really want to make sure that they're nice and sharp. That's going to give you the greatest amount of surface area when you are shading.